Now, as I said, every time I'll be starting with my PPT, and also in the process, I'll keep on telling you what are the requirements. Now, why did I start with Indigo basically? If you look at the trend of the questionnaire, questions from the lesson Gandhi's Indigo is surely there. Children find it easier to remember because of their lessons from history. And if we are able to give them the very chronological development of it, it's definitely easier. So far, in so many years, we had been preparing them basically for the character sketch of two persons, Gandhiji, Rajkumar Shukla. Apart from that, the theme, title, message. How did it become a turning point in Gandhi's life or India's independence struggle? This year, in the sample paper, they have given a different kind of question. They have given the question that what genre does it belong to, in the sense that it's a historical biography. And students will have to support this statement with the help of evidences from the lesson. So, genre-based question that we have been doing. Remember, for the last lesson also, we tried to justify why is it a historic document and how is it imparting important, valuable lessons to us. When keeping those things in mind, one by one, author's note is mandatory that we necessarily include in the PPT, because through that we are able to establish that this is basically a biography based on Louis Fisher's regular interaction with Gandhiji. So the authenticity of the entire track is maintained. Now, why are we looking into it as a kind of biography and not merely history? This is very, very important a question and a thin line of style. If you notice in the last 1 year, or even if you study the NEP 2020, it says over there, children should be acquainted with various styles of writing, and they should be given enough opportunity to explore and come up with their own writings. For the newcomers, are you aware that in the new curriculum, they have rather in NEP 2020, there is a provision for the students in both 11th and 12th to go for a declared holiday of 2 weeks wherein they can go as apprentices and go for internship. So what do I mean by that? We can send the children over to the Times of India head office or even to the Hindu office, whereby the children can sit over there. I'm sure you will be having many students who are interested in media, not necessarily in print media, because that is not something that really sounds lucrative to them, but definitely they are much tempted by the television a lot, because they can see people over there and they would like to go around and interview people like that. Now, what is the provision given over there? The CBSE says that allow them, the children, if they are interested, to go as interns over a week for over one academic year for 2 weeks, and they can learn the tricks of the trade, as we call it. So this can come over anytime, and for that reason, every genre has its specific way of writing. See, why aren't we calling this history? We are not calling this history simply because there is no such historical documents alone. That is what you find over here. You rather find the biographical note. The biographical note in the sense that the very chronological development of Gandhiji's development or greatness as a mass Indian leader during the freedom struggle. That is what we are tracing. In the course of history, they have been told about Champaran movement. but certainly as a small paragraph where they were told that this was the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. But the very role of the commoners over there, like Rajkumar Shukla, how he came over, Gandhiji, to his own confession, wasn't aware of it. All these things the children are expected to be told in details so that they get interested. You know, if you search in the YouTube, you will get so many such things related to it. I've got some pictures over here. I am ready with some of their original pictures. This is necessarily Rajkumar Shukla. I asked you to go through the lesson. This is, of course, the president himself, Rajendra Prasad, and Mrs. Gandhi, that is Kasturbai, and of course, Devdas Gandhi. This is that centenary Satyagraha celebration in which Rajkumar Shukla's face was imposed and released as a stamp. In the third level, because they have learned about stamp collections over here, they'll understand the very importance of a stamp related to some historic movement. So with this, we are saying that we are paying the very tribute and homage to that very ordinary man who single-handedly changed the course of Indian history. He was the one, because of his goading, his caution, his conviction, and his constant goading eventually compelled Gandhiji to take a train and reach at Champaran. And the rest, as they say, is history. So here again, we are talking about through this. The next one, the issues. This is the long question answer. What was the problem at that time? Why did Gandhiji go over there? So these are the points that we expect the children to prepare with. You know, every form of learning has its own flip side as well. While we keep on talking about online education as being very, very difficult, wherein we weren't sure whether the children were around or not, but those who actually made good use of it, we were able to reach out to them. You know, sometimes with the help of the chalk and blackboard, we are not able to write it down. Of course, what I do these days is that I call up one of the kids from the classroom and I dictate these points and ask them to write it on the blackboard. And for others, instead of writing down in the classwork, I tell them to write it somewhere in the textbook itself. That this was the crux of the entire issue. What is the Champaran issue? What is the Champaran tragedy that compelled Gandhiji to come and sort it out? So this is how we are able to give it. But as I was telling, blackboard in its black and white color may not be so interesting. But with children, when I'm giving them this kind of a colorful one, at least I'm able to hold their attention for some time. So if you have access to them, as we keep on doing still, I try to upload it in the Teams, and the children, they try to look at to it. Now, as I said earlier also in the course of all these things, that audio video messages have a wonderful, oh my God, this is an audio track. Can I close it and restart, or is it okay that if I tell you that this much is there? I've taken it from the net only. Would you like to hear it out?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 1 second then. This talks about the Champaran issue. I'm sorry, while sharing, I shared the sound, I forgot to press.
We have completed 100 years
You able
of the
to hear
Champaran
it?
Satyagraha.
Yes,
Champaran, a
Yes,
district
ma'am.
in the state of Bihar, where tens of thousands of landless serfs,
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
indentured
ma'am.
laborers, and poor
Okay.
farmers were forced to grow.
Sorry.
We have completed 100 years of the Champaran Satyagraha. Champaran, a district in the state of Bihar, where tens of thousands of landless serfs, indentured laborers, and poor farmers were forced to grow indigo and similar cash crops by the British East India Company. The farmers and laborers were forced to grow indigo instead of food crops, which were necessary for their subsistence. This indigo was brought from them at a very low price to export to China as opium. The farmers were suppressed by the ruthless landlords, mostly British, and were given measly compensation, leaving them in extreme poverty. In the throes of a devastating famine at Kheda, the British levied a harsh tax, which they insisted on further increasing the rate. Without food and without money, the situation was growing progressively unlivable, and the peasants in Champaran revolted against the Teen Katiya system of indigo cultivation in 1914 and 1916. Rajkumar Shukla, an indigo cultivator, persuaded Mahatma Gandhi to go to Champaran, and thus the Champaran Satyagraha began. Gandhiji arrived in Champaran on the 10th of April 1917 with a team of eminent lawyers. He proposed satyagraha, non-violence, and mass civil disobedience. He organized a detailed study and survey of the villages, accounting the atrocities and terrible episodes of suffering, including the general state of degenerate living. Building on the confidence of villagers, he began leading the cleanup of villages, building of schools and hospitals, and encouraging the village leadership to undo parda, untouchability, and the suppression of women. Gandhiji led organized protests and strikes against the landlords, who, with the guidance of the British government, signed an agreement granting more compensation and control over farming for the poor farmers of the region, and cancellation of revenue hikes and collection until the famine ended.
That was the scenario in 1917, 100 years from then. Can we juxtapose the situations then to the situations now? What is the condition of the farmers in our country now? Is it any different? The number of suicides we get to hear that the farmers have committed in the wake of their inability to repay.
Well, that is what we get it. And sometimes ago, say even 2-3 years before, we used to get these kind of value-based questions. So I would ask them. But right now, because the farmer agitation was quite a controversial one, I have asked them not to really venture into that field at all. So we have to be very, very careful, because these are board examinees and they need to really write things in the proper context. So that's how we proceed with it. Theme, title, and all these things are there. After that, what you get is the message. Indigo highlights the unequal economic system, and this is what they are told in a very powerful manner through these kind of structures they are able to remember. The character sketch of Rajkumar Shukla, where we say it's the victory of a commoner. And last but not the least, we have this: how Gandhi reached Champaran. These are all important questions. Gandhiji Indigo lesson is something that keeps coming almost every year. So I always make sure, if Indigo is there, that my children are pretty well aware of all the things that are happening in the course of the story. Now, what do I do next? Role of lawyers. Again, through points. I have given a synopsis of it so that they remember. Steps taken by Gandhiji, one after another, from the time he reached Champaran till, as I say, Battle of Champaran 1. This is a complete briefing to the children, remembering which they will be able to frame their own answer. Now, why is it again that I'm insisting on my children to go for Indigo? There's one solid reason. Today's children aren't so very conversant with the literary, the flowery language. They don't like it. They are not able to express themselves. And for the Gandhiji lesson, comparatively, if everything is presented, the facts and figures are correctly presented, then everything becomes very, very easy for them to score the marks. And that's why I am insisting every time, all teachers insist that Gandhiji lessons should be prepared. And for that, we try to give them in this manner. This is another lesson where I'm sure you will agree that note making can be taken help of. They can write their own notes, or they can refer to these kind of chronological development. In fact, as I told you, for the term 2, the sample paper which has been released talks about it as a historical biography, wherein not only two things we need to really explain through this. This is the biography of Gandhiji, well and good. It traces the very growth of Gandhiji as a mass leader. But at the same time, it also talks about the very form in which India's freedom struggle slowly moved from a mere protest over to a very, very vehement and strong protest, which ultimately resulted in the independence in 15th August 1947. So it is not merely the history of Gandhiji, it's also the history of India's freedom struggle. This is the point that they need to insert in their long question answer. This is what I have found out after talking to various teachers on the basis of the sample paper which has been released this year. We aren't going to conclude. Let's me come back to it again. For these kind of answers also, there'll be 3 paragraphs, right? For the first paragraph, it's going to be introductory paragraph, 2 sentences they are writing. Louis Fisher's biography, Gandhiji and his whatever from wherever it has been taken. That is 1 sentence. It traces the role of Rajkumar Shukla or the commoner, how he was instrumental or he played a pivotal role in India's freedom struggle. Then we come over to the second paragraph, the content paragraph, where of course with the help of all these points, if the children are able to write accurately the facts and figures, definitely in the content part we are not ever reducing. Just that they have to maintain the correct ordering of it and the situations in the correct manner. After all this, when we come over to the last paragraph, now on the basis of the genre-based question, we are going to say that it's not merely the biography or life story of Gandhiji, it is also the story of India's freedom struggle. That is how they will be concluding it. A standard line given, as we do for the sake of everybody before the board exam, certain key phrases and words need to be taught to them. So these are the one. Sterling traits of Gandhiji, what are his qualities that we are able to find out over here. And the last one, turning point in Gandhiji's life. So that also we are working through this. This is how the entire lesson, the synopsis is taken. Right. Teachers, so far so good. But then merely they want to listen to this lesson because somewhere history actually appeals to them. But the moment you ask them to prepare it for the examination, they find it very, very boring. So before the project concept itself had come, we had all, I'm sure the seasoned teachers will tell you, Vijay Lakshmi ma'am and all others will agree, that we had been necessarily asking them to go for in-depth study of these kind of topics and come up with their own presentations. Teacher, allow me to show the kind of projects that they prepare. 1 minute. I will be showing you a project. I'll be opening in between the files because if I'm keeping everything open, my system is slowing down. So kindly bear with me, okay? Right. Now, as is mine, while I was showing it to you, the lesson-based PPT, was there anything that you wanted to ask me? Please feel free to check it out. Tell me. Crystal Mary ma'am, you have been teaching 12th standard for how many years now?
2 years.
2 years. What do you try to help them learn and by heart this lesson, ma'am? Because
Yeah,
the
I see.
years and other things need to be really remembered. What do you do for that?
As you first showed the synopsis, no? Like that only I made the points. That will be
Yes.
helpful. Otherwise, it will be boring only during the preparation, as you have already said.
Yes, ma'am. It becomes very
Yeah. And the same method you did know, that will be, that is good, and I followed that one only.
What about you, Vijayalakshmi ma'am? Do you have something different?
Yes, ma'am. After taking the lesson, I will take them to the AV room and I will show the line by line explanation and also some animations related to this lesson, ma'am.
Like I have.
Yeah, yes.
Kind of audio video recording.
Audio
There are
video,
plenty
yes.
in the YouTube teachers. There are so many in connection with Champaran. Yes, Vijayalakshmi ma'am, continue.
Yes, the animated movies like related to the lesson, I will show to them.
Ma'am,
That's why-
actually in the AV room, I showed them the clippets from the movie Gandhi by Richard Attenborough's Gandhi. A
Oh.
little bit of it. The Champaran Satyagraha movement, that bit of it, I could show it to them in the AV room. That's what
Related to Champaran, there are a lot of clippings.
Lot of clippings. And actually, Vijayalakshmi ma'am, I don't search. I just tell them there are certain things I'm not able to remember. Can somebody help me immediately? The moment you open your mouth and ask them to search for Google, they'll be more than eager. Ma'am, we will go to the computer lab, we'll find it out. They on their own, and whatever they do with their own hands, they're surely going to remember. If I keep on, as we say, the spoon feeding kind of method, it isn't going to work out. You go to this particular link and find out and do this. It's not cutting the ice anymore with this 24.
I will follow this, ma'am.
You can try this out.
Yes, I will try with this.
They are lovely, highly enterprising in Google search. And trust me, they are really much smarter than us. In a jiffy, they are able to find out. Ma'am, yes, ma'am, like that in a jiffy, within a fraction of a second. You just have to tell them that today I thought I'll show it to you, but I'm not able to reach out. Can somebody help? Wow. You'll get all 40 as your volunteers, and within a second, they'll be coming out. They'll do all the adjustments. They'll put set the audio, set the video, everything. Come on. And all
They will do that.
done. By that time, another person will come out with another link that also we try to watch it. But for this lesson, we have to take help of this kind of audio video clippets. Otherwise, it becomes pretty
They won't listen. It will be very monotonous for them.
Yeah, true, ma'am, true. It's monotonous is the word. That's why, okay, teachers, what I'm showing you actually now is the project prepared by the children for the internals. Those who had taken up Champaran, they had taken similar pictures. But all these pictures, as I was telling you, we had done it during the class hours itself. Project, though we are giving some specific names that this is the work of so and so, often it is a collaborated effort. It's a combined effort. Many heads are put into it. Students have done it. Something I have shared with them, that also they put it. But on the whole, this is how they try to. And for this lesson, this time, I am necessarily going to share with them this project, because this is quite an exhaustive one. It has covered everything that I would like them to know. And what will I do? I will take them to the AV room, as always, while I play it. I'll give a long scale, usually what we get it in the physics lab. I'll make them run, fetch it over, and the scale, they'll hold it. And for every slide, I'll ask them to read it out. They feel very, very important. With the scale, they are reading it out, standing over there, they'll be marking at important words, and I'll insist upon others to jot down the important facts from there, which will not only help them understand the lesson, but keep them ready for the project that they have to prepare later. So this is how we will be working. Consequences of Champaran movement. So simultaneously, they are doing history as well as the lesson. Evolution as a leader of the masses. This is why we call it the turning point. The efficacy, the usefulness of Satyagraha, that was proved for the first time in modern history anywhere in this world through Champaran. That they have been told in the social science books. That is what they will be doing. All these things we have done in the PPT, we have it, but they have taken it from there. Then the survey part. This they definitely go around and they talk about, and this is how they have charted it. Just giving you a glance of it. And finally, after this, for this particular lesson, it is mandatory that they will have to find out some aspect of Gandhiji's life or something related to Gandhiji's freedom struggle, and on that they have to make a presentation in the classroom. As I told you, we have to make them patriotic Indian. So,
I remember one thing, ma'am.
yes, Mary ma'am, go ahead.
Yeah, last year what I did, no, I made them to play the role play. What is happening in between Gandhiji and the Britishers, landowners like that. It was quite interesting, really, and they enjoyed it. They learned that day.
Man, there was
Really.
something, I mean, they were really ready to play out the part on the atrocities so nicely. They had
Of
taken
course, ma'am.
the dramatization part is amazing. The children come up with, we have to actually tell them Gandhiji was never beaten by anybody. I had to intervene and tell them, you have to, no, sorry, ma'am, they again will correct it. Indeed, what Mary ma'am says is really another, which is again, what has happened, the biggest fallout of this COVID has been children somewhat in the first few months, I'm sure you'll all agree, they were not ready for any kind of group effort. They were trying to go for only solo things. I'm not comfortable working with others. When do we need them? How do we prepare it? At least you people opened much earlier. And some of you being residential schools, you had students with you. But for me, they were always ready for individual things. But what she said, this dramatized version or role play, that has been a regular scenario, regular one. And Mary ma'am, isn't it wonderful to see the children really play?
Really, ma'am, they enjoyed it. And on seeing that, I really enjoyed my class like that.
Ma'am, isn't
And a initiative I could see from the children's side. And yeah, it is one of their parts in life. So trying to act upon, so that I enjoyed my class. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you.
And another thing, Mary ma'am, by doing this, we also constantly keep on speaking, shouting. We also get some kind of a rest, truthfully speaking, isn't it, ma'am? By giving them the center stage, while they not only feel proud, we get the rest. And of course, because of this boosted morale, we see a changed performance from next day onwards. That is from my very own experience, I can tell you. You give away the stage to the child. The child will not only remember you for the rest of your life, for the rest of his life, her life, but also it's going to have a tremendous impact on the child. And another thing, the second part basically of the lesson, I asked them to enact it, where the socio-cultural development of Champaran is highlighted upon. Because there the caste is a huge one. You can enact over there that he went over to talk to the villagers and the ladies, they don't have proper clothes to drape around and they are crying and trying to say all these things. And eventually Gandhiji is wiping his own tears and saying that, okay, let me do something for them. It's very important. There's a hospital where there are only 2 medicines and the doctor says, beyond this, I do not have. All these things have been mentioned in the textbook, which they are enacting to perfection. And Gandhiji's wife, sons, they come over, how the 2 teachers were employed to have a change. The change should be visible in their lives. With those kind of concluding words, they complete it. The learning is completed. As I told you, Gandhiji, if you look at the board questions, there are two things possible. Either they talk about that Champaran where it ends with the turning point in his life. Otherwise, it talks about Gandhiji not merely as a political reformist or an activist, but also a social reformer. For that social reformer, the second part is very important. Children vaguely remember. So two different dramas we ask them to enact. And with that, the lesson is done. And everybody wants to be Gandhiji because they can stoop and walk like that with a stick. I have to remind them at that time, Gandhiji wasn't so old. The way you're stooping, he wasn't. That was the beginning of his political career. How can he be stooping? No, Gandhiji has to stoop. Children will very innocently insist, Gandhi means he should be bent. Then they'll bend a little less. Isn't it, Mary ma'am? It's wonderful. It's so refreshing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And borrowing spectacles from somebody to act like Gandhiji, that happened.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Borrowing spectacles from somebody, that is very important. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful. How did you get it? Those usual bifocal kind of things. My grandmothers and wearing those kind of things. The child is not able to see herself. Wait. Wipe it. Again, she wears it and goes on. It's hilarious, but that's how they remember the lesson. We have to entertain them constantly. That's a big challenge for this particular set, who are not only the product of the 21st century. Another reason is that because of the COVID, they have seen so much of PPT. The visual impact has been so much on them that even now they would like to see it with their own. And anything that they do on their own, that is priceless a feeling, and allow them to do it. Whether it's searching the Google, whether it is searching for questionnaire, whether it's searching for any such thing, or even coming out with role play or one act play, or even a small skit on that, they will do it. They will amazingly make you happy. And the whole school will get to know that there is something happening in that section. There'll be so much of sound, so much of activity. They'll go to the extent of getting things borrowed from the teachers as well. That's the beauty of it. So teachers, any specific question on Gandhiji? I'm not showing
No,
any
ma'am. No, ma'am.
questions as such. Everything, whatever is there, please make sure that the NCERT textbook, the questions that are given, that is the primary one. After that, we go over to the rest of the things. In between, for comprehension, the questions are given. If we are able to do everything, we are somewhat assured that the child is ready for the lesson. Right. After Indigo, then which one do I take up? Can I take Deep Water?
Yes, ma'am.
As for most of us, we prefer to do this side by side, because one is biography, the other is autobiography. Gandhiji is biography because Louis Fisher talks about his life, and Deep Water is William Douglas's autobiography. So again, two genres, again, two distinct style of writing is what we are making them aware of. And for this lesson, necessarily, first of all, after telling that this is an autobiography, I insist upon them to take a page from their own individual life and write it down, which they have to necessarily share, which they haven't told anybody. And that becomes a wonderful experience. Some fear, some kind of a special experience they had. One student went over to say, usually they go over to all these water kingdoms or, the amusement parks. And this child shared with us that once over there, she had hit onto a particular instrument, she says. She's not able to clearly explain what actually had happened. But she remembers meeting with an accident in one of the amusement parks. And since then, she had developed a fear, but she never ever came open or clear with it. She never told this to anybody, but it was the classroom where for the first time she was sharing with all of us that what a terrible fear she has in the name of the amusement parks. She cannot go in that way. This was unusual, but this is what you can try it out as the pre-reading. You just ask them any fear you have, any kind of special something which you have, but they have to sit quiet for some time. 5 minutes time will be given. They have to pen it down. If they want, they can write it down and read it out, or they have to come over and speak it out. Anything is open. The first 3 or 4 speakers, you'll have to drag them out of their places. They won't be ready. They'll be too reluctant to come out. But by the time you come over to the 5th, everybody is ready. They are ready to dash over to the center place and speak out of their own problems. They will talk about everything, all kinds of fear, because this talks about fear psychosis. This is not merely an autobiography. This is also something which talks about fear and how to overcome fear. Now we have to go for these kind of ice-breaking sessions for each and every lesson. They are not interested so much in English, and that too these kind of, according to them, dull, drab textbooks. They say openly every year. Today also I told you my 12C, I had to give them the hall tickets, and today was the last day for them in the school for my commerce group. And I was asking them, what is your final wish in relation with English textbooks? Ma'am, the textbook should be changed. Open like this. Them and strong. And what do you want over here? Ma'am, something interesting, ma'am. What is that interesting? What is that interesting? That nobody has a voice. No, nobody knows. But ma'am, these are not okay. These kind of stories, nobody reads these days. What do you do? So close your eyes and try to name at least 1 or 2 books. That also they are not ready because they hardly read books these days. But this is something that's very difficult. Their attention span has drastically reduced. They cannot read for too long. So that's what I have to do. Other things, if you can think about, please share the next time with all of us. Saga of perseverance and courage. Because ultimate message that we get from here is this. And the project, when they are preparing, they are going to talk about how psychologically the fear can be treated with. Okay, 1 minute, teachers. I'll just take a second.
This lesson I find difficult, ma'am. The names of the cities in US and other rivers name, children find it very difficult.
Ma'am, for that,
Yakima,
Takima River and all, even
a
towards
lot of
the end,
rivers.
towards the end, and the n number of creeks and rivers that he tries out to become an ace swimmer. Ma'am, what I personally do is that I ask them to read it again and again. That becomes really sickening and boring, but then there is no other way. There's no other way. And we all know that question is asked. What did he do to become an ace swimmer? Even after the swimming instructor was done, he wasn't done. Why does he say so? In that question also we have to mention that so many other places that he kept on trying on his own and until he became. Is there any other way that we can help it? Mine is a very boring job, and it's equally boring to the children as well.
Yes, ma'am.
It's difficult. It's actually difficult. What do you do, Vijayalakshmi ma'am, to help them by-heart it? Certain things
Uh,
have to be lighthearted.
Yes, ma'am. I just asked them to read again and again, as you said.
Yeah, and write it. Make sure that they remember what to
No
do.
other go.
No other go. And CBSE also keeps asking the same question,
Same
isn't
question.
No,
it?
ma'am, my idea is, sorry, ma'am.
No, Mary ma'am, please. This is the
Yes,
fun of
we can,
everybody.
in future, we can ask the children to write those names on chart and we can paste it 1 or 2 weeks. If it is there means definitely easily they can remember those things.
That's a very good thing that I got from you people. That
Thank you, ma'am.
merely writing is not enough. Pin it up on the pin board and let it be there whenever they are there. Even if they are having their snacks or lunch or anything, they are able to see those names and know unknowingly also it gets registered with them. I agree, ma'am. That can be tried out. But nowadays, the children, they are so averse to it. Sometimes I feel that they have closed themselves up. They are so much so against it. But that's one very good choice that we have. The theme and the message, the storyline, this is how I make them and keep them into it. 3 4 years old, went to California, father with father, swept down or knocked down by waves, suffocated, frightened. That was the first time. Second time, misadventure at YMCA pool, together the very very tragic fear, and finally how he overcame it, and that too how, with his own personal efforts. Where there is a will, there is a way. That's what we are trying to say. It's all in your attitude. How far you will go, that is decided by your attitude towards it. So we constantly keep reminding the children that it's the story of your own life. All your fears. See, the child, as Vijayalakshmi ma'am correctly told, many will say that I have a stage fear. I can write it, ma'am. I won't be able to come and speak it out over there. So we see that you need to do that quite a few times, then automatically you will get rid of that fear. So we have to pull them out of their shell. That's why we keep on talking about this. This is what the child has come out with. Please have a look at it. I would like you to look at the title also the child has given. This is one of my very promising student. She has already written a novel, and she is the daughter of one of the most eminent, what do I say, crime reporters of the town. Father is an eminent reporter. From invisible to invincible, conquering the abyss. She has given the title for this deep water. From invisible, the fear is invisible, it's never seen. He had been really going on inventing excuses for a greater part of his life till he became an invincible. Nobody could really defeat him in the water sports. He had conquered the abyss, the lowest possible phase. William O. Douglas. And why will, this is how it is: grief, obsession, trauma, manic, dementia, depression. All these are nothing but the creations of our weak mind. And then how we really come out of it, that is going to be the beauty of it. So trauma, look at the images. Given an open hand, no, the children can really make you so happy. They'll be amazing. Why deep water? Why did she have to? It's written it. It's taken from the book from where it is taken, of Men and Mountains, William Douglas's original work. As nightfall does not come at once, neither does oppression. In both instances, there is a twilight when everything remains seemingly unchanged. And it is in such twilight that we all must be most aware of change in the air, however slight, lest we become unwitting victims of the darkness. In the twilight zone of us, let's take charge of our lives. Let's hold our lives by the handle and make the best out of it. Every life is full of trouble. There's no life in this world possible which is free from maladies. There are problems. Nothing more than a state of mind. This is one of my favorites. I just couldn't help showing it to you. If I could really show it to you, the wordings and other things, she's done an explicit job and an exquisite one as well. Very detailed it is and equally beautiful. This is the line straight from the textbook. There is terror only in the fear of death. Effects of trauma. Trauma and the brain. We go into the nerve domain of science. This is not psychology merely. We're talking about biology as well. What happens if we are traumatized for too long? How does the brain react to it? This child, in all probability, should be able to crack the NEET as well. Through the eyes of a child, the child is usually not allowed to. The child is not so expressive also because the child is not able to understand exactly what is happening. And this is a known fact that is given who overcame trauma. All of these have made it big in their lives, but it all started with some personal problems. How do you do it? Establish safety, learn to manage your emotions. When he decides to employ a particular coach or an instructor, that was the beginning of William Douglas's journey. In the same way, what we find over here is a journey. J.K. Rowling, we all know whatever she has told, what a terrible life it was, and how it turned out to be a cathartic moment. Through the Harry Potter series, she was actually coming to terms with her own childhood fear. In even the darkest of time, if only one remembers to turn on the light, conquer fear, conquer failures. With these words, she has ended it. The other references are there for you to see. Children will amaze you. Learn to trust them. In a way, I feel in the last 10 years, my job has become less. I have become, as I keep telling, truly a facilitator. I'm just a guide. I tell them, can you try out this? And they are ready to try it out. In fact, they hate if I am teaching the way I was teaching 10 or 15 years before, standing over there. Come on, children, open the book at page number this. The first chapter, whom do I get to read it out? Child from the first row, come on, get up, start reading. They don't like it anymore. I get the same thing done. Instead of telling that you get up and read, I say that, so who's ready to read it out today? And when the child gets up, I say that, hey, come on, the last week also you were only reading. What are the others doing? Sleeping? Or are you not interested in pulling them out? Once you finish your reading, you have to nominate somebody who's going to be the one to take over your place. And that's how the chain starts. I don't nominate anybody. I don't ask anybody to read, but the children on their own. And that's how they, and sometimes they're very smart. So, don't you think she got up? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Hey, she never got up. She needs to get up. And that's how they make sure that everybody gets a chance to read. I do the same thing, but I need to talk to them completely differently. And talk to them in the lesson Deep Water. They're going to remember you forever. Today also, they were so very, very nostalgic. I said, if one lesson you have to remember, which lesson will you say? Obviously, there was no taker for poetry. As students of literature, I have been waiting for a day when children will say, I love poetry and this poetry is something which touched my heart. No luck, dear. But Deep Water, I find every batch, they feel so connected with it. To use their own words, this is not me who's speaking. They say, we are able to connect to the lesson in a much better way. And because of that, it's so beautiful. They remember. Which lesson will you remember the most? Deep Water. From deep trouble, how we came out with. Which was your deepest troublesome moment? They'll come up. Ma'am, the previous night of the quarterly exam, I thought this time I'm going to definitely drown. But somehow I managed to sail. what I play with them is that you have to use in terms of all those verbs that are associated with only the swimming. You have to explain yourself as if I was sailing in the same boat like her. Okay, that is how you start. Okay, I felt like I was sinking, I was about to drown, but then a helping hand came over. Like that, standing over there. Okay, they'll have to make some sentences and explain their exact situation, what it was. And they love it. And for me, I don't have to correct much. I just stand by the wall. Somebody, wrong, 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 wrong. They will correct it again. Start. You will start it again. Let's get used to the terminologies. And it's creative. It's fun. They enjoy. I also play with them sometimes. Be William Douglas and explain your experience in the YMCA pool. You're about to sink. How are you feeling? They do it. Kick the water. I have to come out. Oh my God, they're very good at all those kinds of enactment. Amazing there. Here's Lost Spring for all of you. And Lost Spring, we have two stories of stolen childhood. We justify the title for the first time to the children. We first of all tell them how spring and youth are always connected, how it is. And because they have already done the poem, My Mother at 66, they will be able to relate to the youthful exuberance with spring. And lost spring means lost opportunities, because youth is the time when it is actually known for its dynamism, when there is immense opportunities, when the individual actually blossoms. Now, when everything is lost, there is no hope for this society, or for that matter, the nation at large. This is what we are trying to say. Now, because we are talking about everything, the genre and interdisciplinary learning, here we are talking about article writing. These are all Anis Jung's very originally published in 2005. This is the look of the original book, Stories of Stolen Childhood, from where it has been taken. We also know, if we surf over there, that she was a great writer. She has written books. She has been regularly contributing to some of the famous publishing houses, and she was specializing necessarily on talking about the downtrodden and others. So with this, we tell them, if you want to give the story of the poorest of the poor, if you show them some statistics, people just look at it. Probably if they're too keen to analyze it, they try to analyze and then it's forgotten. But if you really want to reach out to the masses, what you need to do is to tell them a story, because human saga has immense potentials of touching every chord of every heart. So over here, instead of talking that the people who reside in the slums of Simapuri in Delhi, or those who are attached to the bangle making industry in Firozpur, they are going through a pathetic life. See, I could finish it off with a single sentence itself. But when we read through that, when we are told about it, have you opened a school? I would like to read over there. When we are told about the irony in the name of Sahib-e-Alam, he is supposed to be the ruler of the universe, and he moves around in tattered clothes, and he is searching and digging in the dumping yard of the city to make his or eke out his living. So these kind of storytelling is very essential when you want to write it. You know, more or less, what happens is that we take this lesson in the month of April. We all know that. And during the month of May, we are telling the children that you can start preparing for the school magazine some article. So while we are telling this, we are reading through this particular lesson and telling them that you have to give away a message, or you have to really portray a particular situation. But how best can you do it? by starting with some individual story, which is heart wrenching, which is very, very, bearing it all, tearing it all, like that kind of a situation. So with this story, the moment I ended, my only assignment is that if you are trying to write for the school magazine, come up with this kind of a beautiful narration where you can, through the story, convey a very important message. That is all I try to do. Frankly speaking, the story itself is so beautifully done. It doesn't require any of our help, except for certain lines over there. At the end of the lesson in the textbook itself, you will find that questionnaire where it says various poetic devices or literary devices have been used in different lines over here. Mostly it is not touched upon. We have never seen them being tested for the examination and all, but I do make sure that for every year my children are familiar with it. They are able to pick them up just like that, and they are able to find out whether it's irony, whether it is metaphor, whether it is a kind of irony over there, or anything for that matter. Through all that, they are able to get into the very gist of the story. This, teachers, you can always think it over. Vijay Lakshmi ma'am, I'm sure you and Mary ma'am also do give emphasis to the literary devices over here, right?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Metaphor,
Exactly. Metaphor
irony.
is there, simile is there, irony is there,
Irony is there.
is there,
Sometimes satire.
everything is there. And with that, we tell them, what I tell them, that when you are writing your article for the school magazine, not only are you going to write this way, you are going to remember that these kind of devices you should consciously use in order to raise the bar of your answer. Then only it can be selected. If it is a mere simple story, why should I pick it up? I tell them. So they learn those literary devices consciously, and they are compelled to utilize it. We do a few exercises in the classroom itself. Instead of this, what else can you think about? Think it over. Suppose somebody had asked you to describe the COVID situation. How will you do it? You can always see a patient in my neighboring flat, or I have seen so and so. There in the first phase and the second phase, we had some of our own personal experiences, and the children were able to relate to it, and they were talking about it. So it's always very, very essential that we should be fit and healthy. That's what they were expected to convey. Again, for this year also, I have gone through it, and this was my second prose lesson. As you all know, 2 prose, 2 poetry, 2 supplementary reader. And this is the last prose lesson we do it. In fact, this is the last lesson also that I consciously do before I break for the summer vacation. And then I tell them, you've learned the style of writing, make your own article based on this. And every year, not all of them will be brilliant. Teachers, you can't be expecting, I'm sure. But what I eventually do, 3 or 4, they will be ending up writing well. Then I tell them to put their heads together and come up with something even more better. Prune it, sharpen it, and then make it even better. So 2, they are always collaborating together, and together they bring up an article which throws light on some of the problems that India is suffering from for that particular year. This is what I tell them, and they come up for their magazine article. And of course, that added impetus, the proverbial carrot before them, is that if it is good, it is coming in the school magazine. So work it out, and they do. They do come up with
We will try, ma'am. This time I will try.
Yes, ma'am. You can tell me your method also, ma'am. Not same method works always. We are like, we always.
No, ma'am. While I'm introducing this lesson, I will ask them the slum area in Madurai, whether
Yes.
they know that or not, and in all the cities. Then some child labor laws act, this
Yes.
act. I asked them to collect all the laws against child labor.
The
Some,
project works that they have
yes,
come up with, frankly speaking, I didn't know that we actually had so many laws in the favor of the children, and yet the child labor was going on uninterrupted. They have done a splendid job, isn't
yes,
it?
they will do that.
Yes. Indian constitution has protected every child, but alas, it's only in paper.
And I also said that you are blessed because you are studying in a good school and your parents are well educated. But think about the children in the slum area and how, what is the need for
The
them?
contrast.
All those things. Yes. I just compare their life and the
Sometimes I
slum
even
children.
ask them, ma'am, this particular, the Slumdog Millionaire, which was converted into movie and A.R. Rahman's music, because of that, we actually clinched the Oscar in the recent times.
Yeah, ma'am. Yes.
The children have watched it, and we have the book in the library also. It talks about how, with his own experiences, that slum boy was able to clinch the, or rather get the answer to the all the questions and win the prize money. It's
Yeah,
a
ma'am.
beautiful story, ma'am. Please read it. It helps to relate to the
Yes,
children.
I read that already. Yes, I will show to the children also, ma'am.
And the movie part also. Movie,
Yes.
we cannot show it, ma'am. It's a little difficult. And
Hmm.
so many things that need to be edited, so we cannot. But we can draw reference to that A.R. Rahman's music, and because of that, internationally acclaimed Oscar award came for India. So they are instantly able to recognize and they are able to relate. There is so much of potentialities among the slum children as well. We are not able to give them the right kind of opportunities, and that's why the final loser is none other than the country. They're very intelligent, they're very, very charismatic kids, but alas, we have not been able to come up to their expectations. Earlier it was easier, isn't it, Vijay Lakshmi ma'am? After doing this prose lesson, or before doing this, we would go over to an elementary school classroom in a slum. They were of the same genre.
Yes, ma'am.
Everything
They would
was
understand very easily, but this time it will be very difficult because the poetry is deleted.
poetry was really difficult for them. It's a real difficult one. And with so many poetic devices over there, it's a challenging poem. But anyway, coming to this, there are so many things that we can do. But as ma'am was telling you, that we are able to get it. I, for the first time when I got to know, I'm very, very honest. I didn't know there were so many laws in favor of the children, but they are there and they have spoken about it. I have, I guess, one PPT also with this. Let me try. Have anything on this or not? I have a project. And the topic that she has taken is education, the right of the children, statistics of child labor, bottom 5 states in child labor, the top 5 states that also we have covered, exact data in which the children were indulged, what we can do as a person to stop child labor, current scenario in Simapuri, the Simapuri that we get in the story. 93 kids, night of child labor. They had taken the newspaper clippings from the recent times. Now, laws against child labor. So many laws are there. Even in the recent times, starting from 1948 till 2013, constantly the laws have been made. Kailash Vidyarthi, recently, I'm sure you all know Kailash Vidyarthi. Without talking about him, we cannot really teach the lesson. Along with Malala, he was the one who won the Nobel Prize for peace. But alas, this generation, they know about Malala, but they don't know about Kailash Vidyarthi. What a tragedy. He's an Indian and he is still working through his NGO for the downtrodden and necessarily the children and their children's rights. But children do not know about Kailash Vidyarthi. Well, sometimes things do go wrong somewhere. So I make it a point to remind them, Malala is good. You know, you're a girl and you know about another girl's achievements is good. But he didn't clinch it single-handedly. He was a joint winner of the Nobel Prize that year, and the other one was an Indian. So once told, we come over, we start working. That's how it goes on. So this is a platform, this is a lesson through which we are really sensitizing the children towards their social obligations. We are telling them what can be done. And you just ask them one thing also, what did you do during the COVID period? They have so many stories. My mother used to cook and go ahead and pass the meal for some people, or we gave away. I gave up my money. I sold my old textbooks, and the money that I received, I gave it to my housemaid. They have something to share, and we allow the children to come up with all their stories. But you have to say something that you have done for the sake of these kind of people. That is the assignment. I don't ask them to write a treatise or something. If you want your article to be published in the magazine, this is the style that you can take up. But you have to tell me, what did you do in order to really make yourself worthy to be called an Indian citizen? And that's they do. This is what it happens. That's how we can continue with this lesson, teachers. Any doubt with that? No, I think we all, I can't say enjoy teaching this lesson, but actually this kind of lesson should be there.